Hello and welcome to the Cereal Sewist and Knitter podcast, a podcast about knitting and sewing. My name's Patricia. I am on Dharug Country in Australia, and you can find me on social media by the handle Cereal Sewist. If you are a new viewer, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to check me out. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It means a lot that you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there. Now, please remember, if you like what you have seen, to hit the like and subscribe button. It tells the algorithm that my content isn't half bad, and it hopefully recommends it to other people so other people can discover my very niche content. So today we are going to do something a little bit different. I should explain. I have lost control of my stash. And not in a good way. So I needed to organize myself in relation to that. Right, I know you're probably thinking, what do you mean, Patricia? Like, everyone who is a knitter or a sewist loses control of their craft stash at one point or another. And you're probably not wrong. Except my handle on it has completely shifted. And I mean, like, to the extent that I looked at my stash and I couldn't remember where I bought some of the yarn. Normally I'm pretty good. Normally I have a rough idea, like a high level idea. I'll buy sweaters quantity and have a, high level idea about what sweater that sweater's quantity can make. But I got to the point where I was like, oh, I need to sort my crap out. So I sat down and pretty much audited my stash, essentially. I put them into 3 different piles. One pile was planned projects. One pile was not sure about the planned project anymore, so whether or not I was changing my mind. And the last pile was no planned project. That pile was huge, like unreasonably huge. And I had a lot of single skeins. I had a lot of colors that I very clearly purchased because I liked the look of the color, but it wasn't something that I was actually going to turn into something. Or I had just changed my mind about the project. So I'll put in some footage of me auditing my stash. It was a lot. I think the fact that I had hidden it away in a Canva chest really hid the size of it, because it was out of sight, out of mind. And so I got to the other end of that exercise and I went, okay, I need to make the hard decision of what am I going to destash? What am I happy to part with, even if it hurts me? And so that's what I did. I listed a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram. I shared it, and just as quickly as it had been posted, things were snapped up. I was in shock at how well the destash went. I wasn't too sure it was going to go too well. I had posted stuff up on my Instagram destash account before, and it just didn't really gain much momentum, if any. I think people are less likely to purchase commercial yarn through a destash, and it might just be different reasons. Whereas if you have your hands on some hand-dyed yarn from a batch that has been discontinued or is really difficult to get your hands on, yeah, that snaps up like hotcakes. So you're never going to fully make your money back on that. And I don't think that's an issue for everyone, at least. You kind of price it fairly, right? So I went through that. I did that exercise. Everything has been popped into the post and is on their way to their new owners for their stash enhancement, which is really nice because it means that it's not just sitting there collecting dust. It's going to be turned into something beautiful. So off the back of that, went right. I need to go through those planned projects that were in the planned project pile where it's wool that hasn't been cast on yet because there are only so many hours in the day. There are only so many hands on my body, namely 2, and document what I had planned for the wool and the size that I was going to make and the pattern, noting of course that I had the pattern because most of the time I have the pattern. So I went ahead and did that. I hopped onto Canva. I used a postcard template that aesthetically jumped out at me. And I created some project cards where I have the pictures of the wool and the wool color or the yarn color that I'm intending or have purchased. I think they all have purchased. The project that it was intended for, how much wool I have for that project, the color, well, I've said that already, how much wool I have for the project, where I purchased the wool from, and the pattern. So I have that all on the postcard. I'll probably pop in an image here so that you can get a visual. So I went through and did that. I spent around 2 to 2.5 hours going through and doing that, creating one for each planned project. I think all up I ended up with like 18 to 19 project cards, which means I have 18 to 19 projects in what most people would put their Ravelry queue, like organizing their Ravelry queue, to start and complete, which is quite a lot. I hadn't really appreciated how many things I wanted to make. And they were all very like minimalist style items that differ in very like specific details. So I'm going to give you a bit of a run through of how I made my project card. So I'll walk you through that process as well, so you can see how I did it in Canva and see what the end result is. And then maybe that'll give you a bit of an idea of something different and creative that you can use, or just see what my process is. So that is the behind the scenes work that comes off the back of the last video that you would have seen, or one of the other videos that's up or about to be put up, which relates to how I pick colors, or specifically that one was about how I pick the colors for the Explorer Fiber Knits Ireland update. This is more about how I create my project cards. So it's quite involved in terms of how I land on a project. And I touched on it briefly in the previous episode where I mentioned my Pinterest board. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like and what's inspiring me, you're welcome to check out that video. I think it'll give you a good glimpse into what my aesthetic is as well. And that sits behind, or is like a step behind this process of how I make my project cards. So you'll see like I have this Sundance garn book, and I've shown it before because I really want to make this. So now I have finally gotten the yarn for this, and it is the recommended yarn. And I'm making it in the intention is to make it in like it's almost like a sage green, like a light sage green. So we all know I like green. I have dark greens, I have mid-tone greens, I have like the Irish Goodbye green in sweaters quantity coming from the Explorer Knits Fiber update as well, which I'll probably hold double with something of the similar green. So I know I can buy like the Sandnes Garn mohair in that green, like jelly bean green, I think it's called, and that would pair really nicely with that. So I digress. I knew I wanted to make this. I got the yarn for this, created the project card for this in the color that I was going to be using and incorporating in my wardrobe. So again, it all comes back to how those colors can fit within what I have or what I'm planning to make or what I'm planning to invest in. So there are some ready-to-wear items that I invest in. So things like good denim jeans, I will thrift, or if the silhouette is really hard to come by thrifting, I will invest in a pair. Anything that starts to get a bit too loose or falls out of rotation, I immediately pull out of my wardrobe and I list it up on eBay to sell. And that is just my way of being sustainable about one thing in, one thing out, so that I keep a handle on the size of my wardrobe, but also hold myself accountable for making sure that I'm being sustainable with my choices. So not just buying or making and not really using things. But once something falls out of favor or something falls out of joy to wear, it leaves the wardrobe. I didn't used to be that way. I used to hoard everything and be like, well, what if I want to wear it for an occasion? I've changed my mindset on that now. And if I'm no longer giving it a loving home, it can go to someone else. And a financially sustainable way of doing that is to resell it in the secondhand clothing market, which is enormous. I use eBay because that's just what I've always done, but I know there's like Poshmark, there's Depop, there's Vestiaire, there's like a whole bunch of other places that you probably already use, if not you're using. Instagram, I think, is also being used for that as well now. So I now really think through what I'm going to make, what I'm going to buy, and what I'm going to invest in. So for something like the Fleur sweater, I knew it needed to be in a color that I would wear. And I also knew that I needed to think about it being a lighter shade so that you could actually appreciate the floral, well, the flowers or the bubbles that are running along the outer edge of the arm all the way down, which is how I landed on the mossy, like, you're saying mossy green. Sage green. So that's got a project card. And I also took the opportunity to look through a whole bunch of my pattern books that I have. So I also have this one, and I've shown it before. I have the Emily slip over already in my queue, I guess. It's already a project to make. See if I can find the photo of this. And that's going to be made in my Explorer Knits pre-order yarn. So there are other patterns in here that I want to make, and I've already thought about the color that I want it in. So for example, this one. So you can see the long ribbing, you can see the long cuffs. It's like a chunky knit. So I have a project card for that one, even though I don't have the yarn yet, because I know that that's something I'm going to wear. And I know I can wear it casually and I can wear it into work. So I took the time to go through all my pattern books, particularly new ones that I hadn't flicked through that I knew I liked. And I picked out the pattern, I linked it up to a yarn that I already had in stash, or because I did recently order some stuff from overseas, I was intentional with the yarn and the color to make the pattern. So another example is I wanted to try my hand at knitting with Sandesgarn linne. So I did order some in, I think it's called Sailor in the Dark, which is a deep navy, which is quite beautiful. And also a foggy grey. And there is a colour that's coming to me from Drops as well that so I have enough in those balls that I could pick and choose or swap what I wanted to make out. So this is just a ribbed singlet that I'm probably going to make in, I think I have like a slate grey coming in this actually. It's like a charcoal graphite. So I'm going to make that and see how that feels on the hands. So I was quite intentional with the project cards linking up to what was in train or making its way to me, and the colours, so that everything that's sitting in the background in my Pinterest board was constantly informing and feeding what I already have in my wardrobe, as well as what I wanted to try and make. So I was really intentional behind that piece. I like wearing singlets in summer. I like a few of us have insecurities about my arms. So I'm trying to focus more on feeling comfortable and cool in the summer heat, and feeling comfortable and I guess at home in my body, rather than observing it with things that need constant improvement. And that's taken a lot of years and a lot of time to unlearn, because we're raised with very strong messaging, particularly women or people who identify as women. All the messaging that we get relates to how our self-worth is tied into our appearance. And so being comfortable in your own skin is not just about being confident or feeling conventionally attractive. I think it's a lot more than that. It's about being comfortable in being yourself. And that is something that informs a lot of what I make and what inspires me and how I end up with a garment that I've made. So there is a lot of thought in it. There is a lot of investment of time in it, but it has its purpose, and its purpose is for me to feel good. And for me to feel good and self-express a style and a look in how I want to present myself in this world relates more to me liking it rather than someone else liking it. So, I guess you could see this as a sea of neutrals and beige and black. Like, I do wear a lot of black. But also, I don't really care. If I have 50 green sweaters and I know I'm going to wear them all, I don't care if all you ever see me in is green. Or if what I'm wearing on a particular day is all thrifted. So it means it's all secondhand clothes. I don't really care, because I feel good. I'm a firm believer that when you feel good in what you're in, you radiate a level of security and self-love that's infectious. And so it is really about cultivating that. In my life, if someone resonates with that and takes that and makes that their own, then that's awesome. That's my phone. And if they don't, that's also okay. So singlets, that was a bit of a tangent, but it felt organic to talk about it. So that's why I did. So that was that piece. I wanted to also show you that I don't always love everything that I get in a pattern book. And it's nothing to do with the pattern book. It's just that didn't speak to me. And that's okay. It will be, be put aside, and it might speak to me at a later point in time. So for this one, I got this thinking, yeah, like I will get all the summer knits pattern books, and surely I will find something in here. Maybe like this is a bit similar to the Ingrid summer sweater. I don't know. I don't want a sweater out of cotton. That's just me. But then there is like a crochet bag in here. I don't crochet. I don't really have any curiosity about crocheting something. More power to those who love it and do knitting and crocheting. Full respect for you and your multi-talented beings. Not me. Yeah. So some like crochet bag. So I think the only thing that I may kind of like is this. And this is perfect for like, and it's also on the cover. This I see as like an island getaway kind of throw over where you'd have your swimsuit underneath, because there is no way that I personally would feel comfortable going braless with this, with the eyelets that it's got at the front. Well, it's got some ribbing, but still. Now, don't get me wrong, I can go braless quite often, and because I don't have a big chest, I can get away with it a bit more in the day-to-day. But this for me is like, I'm on a beach, I'm sipping a cocktail, I'm going for a dip in the pool or something. Maybe in future. But for now, there was nothing in here that I would make, so it's gone into my library. So it just gives you a bit of an idea of how I flick through and think through those aspects before I put them into the project card and pair them up with the wool in the color that will fit within my broader aesthetic. So now what I'm going to do is show you a little bit like a how-to. I made a project card in Canva. So I wouldn't call it a tutorial because it's not going to be like an extensive step-by-step. It'll just be like me showing you on the screen, like how I went to the template, how I created it, how I dropped stuff in. And because it is for personal use and it's not for commercial distribution, I might print some stuff off for me personally to put in like my own project room or into my stash bags onto photo paper, just so I remember what I was visualizing and the size that I had picked and the pattern that I had picked for the specific yarn. I'd also thought about putting them on like picture frames or on a board, but we'll see. So I will now flick over to the how I create the Canva postcard, project card, and hopefully you enjoy that. So here is how I'm going to walk you through how I made my project cards or my project postcards. So I am a subscriber of Canva. I pay premium. This is not sponsored. This is just, I guess you can say, a personal review. Now I love Ravelry for many different reasons, but the one thing that I can't get my head around is the queue. Like you can see I've tried to do this before and put like the wool in there and this is what I want to make and blah, blah, blah. I would never tell you that this is a reliable source for what my projects are or the list that they're being made in. I'm a very visual person, and so I like to see it all on the one spot so that I know what it's going to end up as. So Canva, which I use for many different things, but also they have templates, and I thought a postcard size would be really useful for a project card in case I wanted to print it. I wanted to get all the right info on there. So I they've got many free templates. You don't have to be a premium member to use these templates and to change them around. You can customize them however you like. Being the minimalist that I am, I actually used this one, which is a premium template, but I completely changed it. So what I ended up doing, let's do this from start to finish. I clicked on customize template. I deleted this. I kept this and this layout. I deleted this gold frame. I didn't need it. And I went, right, what I want is an image here of the pattern. Canva gives you the option to upload photos. So as long as you are using this for personal use and for your own personal reference shots, you're not commercializing anything, you can do this for you. Now, the moment you start doing anything like printing or making money from it, then you need to probably ask some questions around intellectual property and copyright. So you can upload photos. As you can see, I've got a pretty broad bank. This is where I create my YouTube thumbnails as well. Now for here, let's say we want to make a project card for the No Frills from Petite Knits. So let's delete the stock image. Everyone knows the Petite Knits sweater. I want this a bit bigger. Right. I can write the pattern here. And then what I ultimately did here was I wrote the yarn in stash intended. And these are just prompts, right? I'm showing you an example of how I created it. How many meters? Colorway. Then here I wrote the size to be made, meters from pattern, and also yarn from or purchased from. So just to remind me where I acquired the yarn from. So those were my prompts. That was my template. It's very, very simple. It's very clean because I wanted the center point or focus to be the pattern, obviously, so that I would be reminded of what I was intending to make. So let's say I've got this done and I really want to make this in, say, jelly bean green. I don't have that saved anywhere here. Just scroll, scroll, scroll. Nope, just thumbnails and stock images for different things. So let's go to the Sandnes Garn website. And this is purely because it's just the one that I was just talking about before. Go to yarn. And we could probably, so remember Petite Knits is fingering and mohair. So you could get a screen grab of the fingering yarn and the mohair that you're going to use, or you can get a screen grab of the DK roughly sport weight that you might use instead. So just to give you an example, we know that Sunday by Sandnes Garn is fingering weight. So let's open that up. And they have their silk mohair. So, okay, I want this in jelly bean green. Copy image, go back to my template, Control V, and there you go. Now, the really cool thing about this is I can go to elements and I can actually change the framing in which I want this to sit in. So I can put this over here for the moment, and it's also been included into my bank. So I can go frame. I want a circle frame on here, and I'm going to resize this because I want this sitting up here so that I can see, or I can put it over the actual pattern. So I can see what this is going to look like, and I can actually drop that into the frame and it adjusts it for me. Now, maybe I don't want to see the ball band. I just want to see the color. I want to get a visual representation of how this is going to look. I can do that. It crops it for me. And you can go bigger if you just want wool, like the wool color in there. That's not a problem. It's pretty customizable, if you want to think of it that way. So there, that's your green. This is going to annoy me, so bear with me. I'm just going to make it super, super big so that it is just wool. All right, now we have our fingering weight in the green, which is awesome. Now we know this needs, oh, I forgot to say, sometimes I write here 2 strands held together. So we go, okay, I want the jelly bean green in the silk mohair, but they don't have it here. So let's see if I can find jelly bean green silk mohair. Google, perfect. We've got it here, and we even have like a nice screen grab of it. Copy, go back to my template. Done. Well, so now this is also here. And again, I can just, you can have the elements already loaded in here, so you're just dropping the images into them. This is just for the benefit of walking you through how I came up with it for me. You follow the process that works for you. So now you can see these 2 yarns overlaid, and that looks really nice. You can position this however you want. I tend to like to overlay it a little bit and make it a little bit fancy. So the other thing that I do enjoy is doing a bit of a plain paint splatter that cuts across, just to get a bit of an idea of the tone. So I will go to my color picker, and here Canva has the option where it pulls out the colors from the actual image that you've uploaded. So I think this one probably represents the combination of the colors best. I'm going to just play with the transparency so that I get that look of how is this going to look as a green sweater. And then that's it. That's my project card done. So I don't need the back. So remember, when you're doing a postcard template, it will have a front and a back. So I can just delete this. I can bin it, and I can rename this to, you know, jelly bean green, no frills. And then Canva will save that in my designs folder. Now, the really cool thing is that you just can download it as an image. You can pick PNG or JPEG. You can send it to them to print, or you can just download it and print it yourself if you've got a printer, and you can get some photo paper to do it yourself. And that's essentially it. It's very straightforward. It really is like, make your own of it. Make it something that speaks to you. If this is your thing, like I really enjoyed this. And to give you an idea of how it looks afterwards, one that I've already ordered the yarn for, I've got the pattern. This is one that I don't have yarn for, but I really love this color and this pattern, so I will eventually make it. So I've created the project card. This is the Twist and Turns project card for the MCAL that's coming up for Stephen West. This is the Sienna shawl that I've got intended to make as well. This is the Louvre sweater that I'm still up here on the neck for this because I was test knitting. And here you've got, I've used myself as the reference shot because I've already made the tulip sweater. I'm going to make it in unspun. So that's how I create my project cards. That's how I'm documenting my projects. And I then drop these into my Trello. So I have a planned knitting Trello board where I create these as cards. So after I finish creating my cards, what I then do is, well, my postcards, I then download the JPEG and I placed them on my Trello knitting planner board. I'm trying to be a bit more organized because, as mentioned in my recent podcast episode, I've lost control of what yarn I have purchased and what project it was intended for. So this is how I've organized myself for the moment. So I've looked into my stash and gone, okay, what was this intended for? And I've created a project cart, and now it's sitting here on a board. I've then also used the JPEGs to create a folder on my Google Photos so that I can reference it on my phone when I'm, seeing a shop update or browsing. I already know what I've got in train, and if it's a similar pattern or a similar color, then I try and rethink whether or not I want to get it. So this is my end result, where I go from the postcard to the planner. So keen to know what you think, keen to know if you enjoyed this, what's your process? Do you just like the Ravelry queue? Do you like using something else? Let me know. Thank you so much for sticking through this. I hope you liked a little bit of the run through of projects, aesthetic, intention behind my makes, some of the emotional self-esteem bit that I mentioned briefly, and also the run through of how I make my project cards on Canva. This is not sponsored. This is just what I've figured out for myself and I quite enjoy. So keep that in mind. And if you have questions or comments, or you want to share some of the things that you do to document your projects, it might not be with outside of Ravelry. You might find that the Ravelry queue is quite perfect for you, and that's great. I tend to be quite visual, and so I need images, which is why the Ravelry queue didn't really gel with me. But each to their own, and whatever works for you. So thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more about the behind the scenes process, hit me up, let me know, give it a like, give it a subscribe. It lets the YouTube algorithm, people, things know that yes, knitters like this, yes, sewers like this, and it will start to suggest it so that other people can find me as well. So yeah, thank you so much, and until next time, look after yourself and each other. Bye.